Hello everyone. Okay, let's go. New update of the week. Main story, a new EIP, so Ethereum Improvement proposal that was proposed for inclusion in not the next hard fork, but the one after. So not Amsterdam, but Hegota. This is just proposed for inclusion. It doesn't mean considered for inclusion. It doesn't mean scheduled for inclusion. It's just a proposal. Anybody can do that. So that's Tapered Issuance Burn. That's the name of the proposal. We have here the authors, including 2 people from the Ethereum Foundation. It's not just the foundation. We have 6 authors here. And what does it even mean, Tapered Issuance Burn? Okay, I want to clarify one thing. For me, the really important thing to understand here is that the main goal is to cap the staking ratio. There is this idea that if we don't do anything and we keep the same issuance curve, the same way there is this issuance yield programmed in the consensus layer of Ethereum, if we don't do anything, eventually the staking ratio, like how much Ether has been staked compared to the total supply of Ether, will eventually go beyond 50% and go even further. We don't know how much, 70, 80, but it will go well beyond 50%. And the idea of this proposal, the rationale of this proposal, first of all, is that this is very bad. We don't want to have 70, 80, 90% staking ratio. And we need to find a way to keep the staking ratio capped in a way like it cannot go beyond 50%, for instance. I mean, that's the number that has been chosen here. Now, I should also say that this is not really new idea. There is since years at this point an effort to clarify or to debate in the community this position that it's really bad to have this huge staking ratio and we should do something about it. There was this concept of minimum viable issuance that is also related to this. But that terminology, that term makes you think that was more about avoiding dilution, like not overpaying for security. And this is also here, but it's not the only thing. And actually, the main thing that is really clear now is that this is about preventing the staking ratio to go well beyond 50%. We need to put a stop to it, or otherwise this will be bad for Ethereum. And I will show you what are really the arguments about this from the authors. But okay, like what are we looking at here? This is the nominal yield from issuance that you have with the current curve. So if we don't do anything, this is what is happening on Ethereum. The yield from issuance only from issuance, this yield is going down with the total amount of Ether that is being staked. But it never goes to zero. Even if all Ether is staked, there will still be an issuance yield. And the idea is that if we don't do anything with this curve, the staking ratio will just go up and up. So what is proposed here with this tapered issuance burn yield, with the new curve, with the new issuance curve that we will also see, the idea is that the issuance yield at 50% staking ratio will be zero. In principle, there is no reason to keep staking. That's not entirely true because there are also the execution layer rewards, right? When you stake Ether and you run a validator, you get rewards from basically your consensus layer duties. That is attestations like voting on blocks, proposing blocks when it's your turn, and so on. And these rewards come from issuance. So new Ether is minted and given to you. But this is not the only rewards you get. You also get rewards from the execution layer. So transaction fees and MEV. So this is not counted here. This is just the yield that you get from issuance. And when you factor in also transaction fees, MEV, then things change. Even with 0% issuance, you will still get rewards after 50%. So that's important. And I will also say that this is acknowledged and there are other proposals and other directions in which, MEV will be burned. But that's really an important thing that is complicating the discussion, I would say. But let's go step by step. This is where we are at now. Today, 33% staking yield. So the yield from issuance would go down from this 2.5% to 1 point something percent. I also need to clarify that this is not happening overnight, like after, let's say after EGOT fork, it jumps like this. There will be an 18 months transition, so this will be smoothed out. Next, this is how the issuance looks like. So I've shown the yield first. The issuance yield first. This is how the issuance looks like. This is the current curve that, yes, goes up indefinitely, but sublinearly with the total amount of validators, or anyway, with the staking ratio shown here. So it just goes up. And there is a maximum of 1.5% per year if all Ether is staked. Under the new curve, with the tapered issuance burn curve, the issuance goes to 0 at 50%. So the way this works actually technically is that we keep the same minting, but then it's immediately burned. I'm not sure if that's important for taxes consideration, probably not. But anyway, it's something good to know. This is how it's implemented, but it's mostly for simplicity. Anyway, another thing we see here is that the maximum issuance is at around 20%. But I guess really important point again is that the idea is to be sure that you can cap the staking ratio, and this is how it works. So there will be no extra dilution after 50%. And I also want to clarify that for the authors, anyway, the idea is that we will never get to 50% or beyond. And the idea is that the market will find out what is the issuance rate, or what is the issuance yield that can justify the risk premium that the stakers will get. So it will, in that sense, it will be defined by the market what is the equilibrium. This is another chart that is good to know, also to understand where the others are coming from, that is showing at which staking ratio, so the total staking ratio, basically increasing stake for a single operator is not anymore beneficial. Let's say you are an operator and you have 30% of the total stake in Ethereum. You see here that if the staking ratio is 37% and you keep staking, your rewards actually go down. So you're not incentivized in keep staking. This is summarized here, where growth stops paying by operator size. While with the previous curve, this is never happening. So if you are an operator, independently of your share of the total stake, and independently of what is the staking ratio of Ether, how much Ether is staked, you are always incentivized in acquiring more stake. You will make more money, let's say, from issuance yield. But again, this chart is only counting issuance and not transaction fees and execution layer rewards. So please always keep in mind that. Okay, now, what are the arguments? Why is this good? And there are two families here of arguments. One is security, neutrality, resistance to capture. And the other is protecting ETH as money. So protecting Ether moneyness. So this first family of arguments is saying that at some point, it's not true that adding stake to Ethereum makes Ethereum more secure. So, you might say, I can measure the security of Ethereum by measuring the total amount of staked Ether, and the higher this number, the more Ethereum is secure. The authors here disagree, and they explain why. And this is the core of the proposal here. We don't want to have that much stake beyond 50%, because at that point, some bad things will happen. And this will be bad for security, neutrality, this family of arguments, and then for Ethereum moneyness. So let's start from security, neutrality. The idea here is that once you go beyond this 50%, most of the stake will be delegated. But yeah, in general, most of the stake is delegated. And if you go above 50% of total stake, it's possible, if not likely, that the stake will be concentrated in few operators, and maybe even only one. And this entity will have an extreme power, will have extreme power on Ethereum. And you really don't want that. So a dominant operator could be treated as too big to fail. Imagine this: there is this entity like a liquid staking protocol or a custodian that has this huge amount of staked Ether, and they have issues, and they could be slashed or whatever. They would be treated as too big to fail, and basically the security of Ethereum relies on the security of this operator. And yeah, that's not good for security, and also not good for resistance to capture. Why? Because there is this idea that you, like Ethereum holders, can always keep stakers and validators accountable by enforcing social slashing with a fork in which misbehaving validators that have acquired too much power and are trying to move Ethereum in a way in which the community doesn't agree with, you can always pull this card of social slashing. You make a fork in which that stake is removed. And if there is this entity with this huge amount of staked ETH that basically replaced Ether as money, as we will see also in the next slides, that's not something you can really do anymore. So the credibility of a fork which implements social slashing is diminished because, yeah, it will be like an extreme minority at that point when there is this entity with this extreme power. And this third topic about neutrality, resistance to capture, is that a lot of Ethereum reason to be considered really credibly neutral and resistance to capture is the fact that there is this long tail of solo stakers, and we need to protect them to keep this claim credible of being credibly neutral. But the problem here is that, according to the authors, solo stakers, if we don't do anything, solo stakers will leave. And why? Because if the staked ratio goes above 50%, this was 50% here, 75, 90, 100%, what happens is that, yes, this red curve here is the nominal yield from issuance, but the real yield goes down because, yeah, this is just issuance. It's minted Ether. And in the extreme case in which everything is staked, your real yield from issuance is zero, because everybody gets these new tokens in the same way, and it's basically, you are just rebasing the currency, and your yield at this point is zero from issuance, zero. But you still need to pay taxes, because you're taxed on your nominal yield, because you get this Ether, and you're taxed on this Ether. Of course, depending on jurisdictions, right? But in many jurisdictions, it works like that. You're taxed on this Ether, but you're not making any money because everybody else is also getting the same dilution, the same issuance. So that's really bad. So you as a solo staker, you really don't want to be here. And maybe you don't even want to be here or here. And this means that solo stakers will leave first, and who will be left will be large operators and holders of tax-shielded positions, like wrapped liquid staking tokens, for instance, that they're not rebasing, and in some jurisdictions, this means you're not paying taxes on it. So yeah, this is another strong reason. I'm not saying yet I agree with this. I'm just saying it's another reason that is given. Solo stakers will leave, and this is bad for credible neutrality. Of course, at this point, the question is, are solo stakers better off with a new curve and with a new yield? And that's a big question. Then we have reasons to do this to protect Ether as money. And we have one reason here, that is excess issuance is taxing holders. So yeah, let's go back to this plot. This means that if you just, so for Ether to be money, the idea is that you like to hold and spend Ether, the currency, the unstaked currency. But if there is this, with the curve that we have now, if you hold Ether, you are at a disadvantage because you are getting diluted, right? So there is this strong incentive to stake Ether or liquid stake out of protocol, yeah, because otherwise you will be diluted. And this gets worse and worse with increasing staking ratio. With the new curve, instead, the issuance is capped, and this is reducing the dilution for staked Ether, for unstaked Ether. So that's a reason to do this. Then the second big reason is that if we are allowed to go above 50%, and we will go above 50% with that curve, then what happens is that, yes, people will not want to just hold Ether. They will probably hold liquid staking token, and that liquid staking token, which again can be from a protocol, can be from an exchange, another entity, it will effectively replace Ether as money. The unstaked Ether as money will be replaced by this liquid staking token. And again, this is not ideal. This is not the perfect idea that one could have of this perfect asset, Ether, that is at the same time used for transaction fees, so spam prevention mechanism. It's also used as money, store of value, but also payments, unit of exchange, collateral, the pristine collateral, Ether, unstaked Ether. And at the same time, should be a way to maybe participate in the success of Ether. There should be some value accrual mechanism. When you want to have everything like this, it becomes hard. And what we are seeing is that Ether might actually be replaced by a liquid staking token. And yeah, it seems you cannot have everything. But well, the authors are saying, no, this problem is because the original curve is broken, and we propose a better issuance curve. So yeah, I would say, honestly, this is not easy. It's not an easy problem in general. I want to anticipate this. And the social layer gains a dependency. This is also related to basically the same reason. Ether will be replaced by staking derivative as money, and then also the social layer, the application layer, applications building on Ethereum cannot rely anymore on this neutral money, but on some derivative that is maintained by a team, basically, by another application, another entity, not by the credibly neutral protocol. Okay, now let's look at a few counter-arguments as well, because yes, a lot of counter-arguments. This proposal was widely criticized. There is a lot of resistance. I think it's very clear. And you can look at the forum, you can look at people talking about it, X and elsewhere. But yeah, this proposal was met with resistance. And it shouldn't be surprising also because it's not the first time we're doing this. The debate on changing issuance is going on since years. And it's tough. It's tough. It's tough to have everyone agreeing on this. Really, really tough. Let's look at a few counter arguments. I don't agree with all of them, but let's go through. One that I want to mention because I don't get it, and it's actually a little bit annoying. Of course, it will be, in some cases, more nuanced than this, but I read like, who, by the way, the authors. So maybe it was mixed. Some people think this is the Ethereum Foundation. I don't know, but the question is, you shouldn't focus on this. There are other, more important things. Let's not talk about it. Why? Why? Like Jerome is super passionate about this. He should focus on this. And there are other important things, yes, but we are also working on the other important things. And Ethereum is also working on other important things. We're also talking about other important things. They are not going to be stopped by this. So I don't get it. Well, okay, there is this. And also bad timing. The institutions are coming. Let's not confuse them. I don't know, man. From the other's point of view, this is a very, very bad risk, so they should talk about it. And then another point is this is impossible to pass because the community should decide. We should involve more the community, and the community has the final say, which I get it. Like if we look at the extreme opposite of this, like two developers pushing an update and everybody forcing, yeah, that sucks. And that's not Ethereum, obviously. Now, how the community should decide, who's the community, who has weight on this, tough. And honestly, I don't see why this is so different from any other upgrade. So we have this EIP governance process, rough consensus, social consensus, that is working decently well. Like Ethereum is upgrading fast. So yeah, I agree. The community should decide. I don't have a better governance process than what Ethereum is already using. But yeah, okay. Then DeFi relies on this issuance yield, basically a base risk-free rate. So would anyone think of the loopers? Yeah. I mean, the loopers are not going to like this. I agree. And I mean, I don't want to caricaturize or to make fun of this. There are good reasons here. You should check the post by Stani, for instance, on the Ethereum Magician forum. I will link to it. But the idea is that for years, we have relied on this curve, and this curve being true, and on the idea that the curve will not just change all the time. And DeFi protocols, applications have been built based on the fact that this is true. And this rate is at the base of utility of Ether also. If you deposit Ether and you have a yield on that, is based also on this curve, mainly on this curve. You cannot just randomly change it. I agree. But again, this is not supposed to be a random change. This is a change addressing almost an existential risk. The idea is that having Ether replaced, it's destroying a lot of the value proposition of the protocol and of Ether as money. Then, institutions like yield. Yes, they want the yield, even if it's just inflation, even if it's just issuance yield, or at the very least, they expect it. So I understand a little bit more the expectation. It's not nice for institutions that have been building business cases and thesis on Ethereum based on this printing Ether. They don't want to see this changing. Okay. Then changing monetary policy is bad for Ether as money. All right, so this is interesting. Now we are getting to interesting stuff for me. Is that because the same argument is given by opposing factions. So this becomes very interesting. The authors believe that the previous curve is bad for Ether as money, but the opponents say that you will never be money if the monetary policy can just change like this. Monetary policy should be stable. Bitcoin, predictable monetary policy will never change. We will see. But and that's, you see, Bitcoin won the race to be the money, at least digital gold. Don't change monetary policy. I mean, this is a strong argument. especially if you bring this to the extreme, like there is maybe this slippery slope that you do this curve first and then actually this is still not as good as we thought. Maybe we can change it again because we have this precedent that we can reach social consensus on changing this curve. So let's just change also some parameters in the next hard fork. That would be bad for Ethereum's money. Doing only this change and never again, I doubt that this is destroying Ethereum's money. But I get this argument. Another very interesting in the same direction, because again, I mean, in the same concept that the two camps argue on the same benefit, we discussed about how the authors believe that with this previous curve, solo validators will eventually leave before other entities, more centralized entities, or anyway, bigger entities. But the opponents of this proposal are also saying that solo validators will leave if we change the curve. And they think it's actually worse for the solo validators. Now, of course, it would be good to know what is the opinion of solo validators. And there are polls, you can check. It's Taker community, other sources. But the facts are that indeed the yield for solo validators is going down. And solo validators are taxed on nominal yield. This is not obvious. Now, when this is pushed to the extreme, people say, no, 50%, zero. Of course, solo validators are leaving. And the others saying, but no, the equilibrium is not 50%, it will be here. But yes, it will be lower than what they get right now. But you should think of the real yield and how this dilution counts less when we go above. So you see, there are above 50%. There are arguments in both sides. And yeah, my problem here that honestly, there is no obvious answer. And for this to pass, you really need super convincing arguments that the next curve is much better than what we have. That's the truth. All right. Other counter arguments. Yeah, this is more like your argument is not that good. And this was about the social slashing. Like, okay, maybe we lose the ability to social slash, but do we ever want to be in that position anyway? Is this really a thing we want to do? And so there is this. And then there is this argument like, honestly, yeah, again, for this to pass, you have to really convince me. And you are trying to convince me that more than 50% is a disaster. And I've seen some arguments like saying, I'm not convinced. There are other proof of stake chains in which we are above 50% and didn't collapse. I mean, they're still okay. And they even say, look at Solana. And there I'm confused because a lot of, same people will say, look at Solana on bad things, and they always talk bad about it. But now that we have this same argument on the more than 50% not being that bad, then they say, look at Solana. I don't know. But anyway, let's look at Solana. And what they have is indeed 70% of the supply being staked. And it's pretty much constant. This is because, they had a completely different path. And liquid staking in Solana is different. It's easier to stake. It's easier to unstake. It's not the same. So I disagree in general with this argument. Look at other networks. Let's focus on Ethereum for Ethereum upgrades. But this is where we are at. The liquid staking in Solana didn't go to 100%. But yes, it went well above 50% and is pretty much stable at 70%. Now, to conclude, I see this as unlikely to pass. It's good to have this conversation, and again, it's a recurring conversation. It's a good conversation because it forces you to understand how things work for the issuance and in general for the economics of staking. But I see it again unlikely to pass. I would say in general, it's extremely difficult to justify issuance changes. Of course, this happened in the past. We had changes to issuance. We even changed from proof of work to proof of stake. But the more the time passes, the more difficult it becomes. And we have a lot of stake already. And we have a lot of big entities involved in staking already. It's tough. It's really tough. Extremely difficult. So you really need to be super convincing. But the problem here is that the proposal is not addressing urgent. Like, you don't see the problem immediately staring at you. We need a fix right now. We are seeing potential risks in a long-term scenario. Years. Of course, when you think of Ethereum as a protocol supposed to last for centuries, this is not long-term. It's very short-term, years. And also changing the issuance in year 10 of 1000, it's okay. It's still zero. But fine, we live in the present. So yeah, it's addressing these risks. And honestly, even when you accept that it's good to think about long-term and the potential risks in the long term, the benefits are not super obvious. For instance, are solo stakers staying instead of leaving with the new curve instead of the old curve? Not super obvious. That's what I want to say. And the second order effects are also not super obvious. The problem here is that we cannot make a proposal that is laser focused on doing only one thing, that is capping stake below 50%. You try to get that, but there will be other effects, second order effects, DeFi, apps, other entities, the community. You can't model all this. So it's not just math, and it's not super obvious. And unfortunately, I think that to justify this change, you need something super obvious for everybody. But I'm not saying this is even possible. I doubt they can never be super obvious. So I'm not saying they should be super obvious. But this is the situation. I just see it difficult to justify issuance change. People get immediately triggered. No, don't touch the curve. Okay. So let's see. But some facts, the staking ratio is going up as fast as possible. It's true. And I'm saying this also because I was earlier this year in Cannes. I was at the Issuance Forum. And I was saying, well, in the end, the staking ratio didn't go up as fast as we thought. Because again, this conversation started years before when it was going up and up and up. But then there was this long plateau. And Justin told me it didn't plateau. And it didn't plateau. It's true. This thing is going up only, right? This was the forum around here. And it's going up only. It's going up only. And this is the queue wait time. People are getting in, trying to get in as fast as possible. So let's see. The idea that why was it proposed for inclusion in Negota is because if we don't do it now, this will go above 50%. I don't know the future, but it's going up. Next, Bitcoin time. Dropkick, a minimal commit reveal rescue protocol. This is research from Conduition. Very nice blog post here. Honestly, every time you see Conduition, you read. You should know. Anyway, let's move on. So, what are we talking about? Rescue protocols for quantum procrastinators. So, Bitcoin. Okay, this is a proposal. Dropkick is a design to address the problem of Bitcoin quantum procrastinators. So, Bitcoin developers are proposing ways to do a post-quantum upgrade. Basically, replace vulnerable transaction signature schemes based on elliptic curve cryptography with post-quantum transaction signatures. And at some point, there will be one or more soft forks allowing you to move your vulnerable Bitcoin that can be stolen by someone with a CRQC, powerful enough quantum computer. So you can move your Bitcoin from vulnerable type of address to a post-quantum address. After this soft fork, you can do it and you're safe because the quantum attackers cannot steal Bitcoin from you. So you feel safe. But you're not safe unless everybody else also does the upgrade. Because, yeah, maybe I imagine you are the only one doing the upgrade. Everybody's sleeping. You hold this BTC and they don't steal it. The quantum doesn't steal it from you, but they steal all the rest and dump it. And yeah, it's not good, right? So you want everybody to participate to the migration. But what about these quantum procrastinators that no matter how much is advertised, they just don't do it? So the question is, there are different ways to cope with this, and it's possible that one of these migration strategies will involve freezing vulnerable coins. Like the rule is you either upgrade by 2029 or we disallow spending vulnerable coins, meaning attackers cannot move them, even if they have your private key, but also you cannot move them, you procrastinator. Okay, that's definitely not ideal. We want to protect the procrastinator. We don't want to freeze people coins. We really don't want to do it. That sucks for Bitcoin. So the idea is that there are these families of rescue protocols people are working on. Rescue protocol means you're a quantum procrastinator, your Bitcoin has been frozen by a soft fork because it was vulnerable and we didn't want quantum computers to steal it. So what we do is there is a solution for you to unfreeze, defrost, I don't know, to release these coins. How? Basically spending them in a way that is only possible for you and not for the quantum attacker. So you're not spending them anymore by using your private key because the attacker also has it or can derive it immediately. So there must be some other way. And the other ways are two ways, but basically they're all based on knowledge asymmetries. They're all based on knowledge asymmetries. Exploit the fact that you, original holder of the coin, you know something that only you could know and not a quantum attacker. For instance, the pre-image of a hash related to the coin. Why? Because quantum computing algorithms cannot do this efficiently. It's not what quantum computers do. So, there are, I would say, two families here, but there are commit reveal protocols and zero knowledge proofs. Zero knowledge proofs, of course, it comes to mind. If you want to prove something you only know and you don't want to reveal the something, but you prove that you know that, you can use zero knowledge proofs. But there is another way, there's commit reveal protocols. You first commit to what you know, and basically this is stored on chain and the chain certifies that you had this commitment, and then you reveal the secret. And basically this is proof that you knew it because only you could commit to the secret because only you knew the secret. And the quantum attacker looking at the commitment has no idea of the secret. So that works. And commit reveal protocols are smaller than snarks. They are much faster to verify, so they have this advantage. But compared to zero knowledge proofs, there are these two steps and, well, actually 3 steps here. And it's a little bit, there are other problems related to commit reveal protocols. So this is the Foxcoin protocol that is the inspiration of these rescue protocols that are being built for Bitcoin. And yes, there are some inefficiencies compared to zero knowledge proofs and other issues, but Conduition and others are working on rescue protocols that are better than this and become actually practical and solve some of these issues. I would say also for zero knowledge proofs, what is argued is that, what if there is a bug? Soundness, what if soundness is not really there? And yeah, and what if the zero knowledge is broken? The zero knowledge property, not the succinctness. Yeah, I mean, in general, Bitcoin tries to be super conservative, right? On assumptions, on cryptographic elements and tools. And so commit reveal proofs are probably the best fit for Bitcoin, for rescue protocols. Now, what Conduition works on with Dropkick is improvement on the original Foxcoin commit reveal scheme. We have certain improvements that are proposed, and one, for instance, is delayed reveal. So there must be 100 blocks in between the commitment and the reveal to avoid that miners try to censor the reveal. So it's, I'm saying the design of commit reveal protocols is not easy, not obvious, and it can be improved. And that's the point of the proposal, to show how to make it better and to look at all the drawbacks and risks and mitigation. And another important one is salvage fees, because, for this to work, to get the commitment in, you need help from someone who already did the migration. And how do you do it? How do you even pay for fees? Like, you cannot just pay for fees if you're vulnerable. So that's something important to think about. If you need sponsorship, if you need to have off-band protocol, off-band compensation, submit directly to miners you trust. I mean, it's not easy, not obvious, but this is a potential mitigation using salvage fees. And the last thing I want to say is that this is not the only proposal or the only way to do rescue protocols. We have also Lifeboat and now Life Jacket. There is this other version that they are in parallel. One is faster, but some additional security assumption. If I remember well, Life Jacket and Lifeboat is the super secure one. And these are proposals by Taj Raja, so another super good guy. Like, I think Bitcoin is in good hands here with both these proposals. They have different benefits and advantages and drawbacks. But yeah, things are moving also for rescue protocols, which is very nice. Now, final section, Solana upgrades. And what do we have here? Okay, first, this is live. SIMD 286 increased block limits to 100 million. So block limits, so 100 million compute units. What is this? This is like the gas limit in Ethereum. So bigger blocks, basically, or anyway, you can do more stuff in a block. You can put in more transactions. From 60 million to 100 million, that's a huge increase, 66% increase in block capacity. So what is changing is the max limit, the limit, the block limit is changing from 60 million compute units to 100 million compute units. What is not changing is this max writable account compute units. They're staying at 12 millions. So you can see Solana has parallel execution, and different cores can work on different things. And transactions that are not touching the same account can be scheduled on different cores. But if an account is very hot and everybody wants to touch the same account, for instance, the same application, then you cannot parallelize those transactions. So they will be scheduled on the same core. So for the same account, transactions on the same account are still capped at a limit of 12 million compute units per block. So all the extra space is for other accounts. This is what they say here for more parallel capacity. More parallel capacity in the sense that this is more space for inclusion rather than creating more space for highly congested accounts. That's the thing. Now, this change is happening because there is real demand, there is real need, and we have blocks that are full, and this capacity comes in spikes, and it's time to find a way to raise these limits. So, of course, this is just a parameter change, but this happened also because the network can handle this, because over time we had big improvements to the client software, right? about block propagation. The block propagation improved. The code improved. ANSA people improved this. What I want to say, like Alex, okay. What I want to say is that this was not just, all right, validators, from now on, you need to buy hardware or get more bandwidth. A lot of this came from optimization to the software. That's what I want to say. Good. Next, so this is implemented. Now I'm talking about governance, like future upgrades. So by the way, Solana now has a governance process based on stake, like it's on-chain governance. And this is the Solana governance proposal. Number 2. Number 1 is constitution. Number 2 is double disinflation. So accelerate disinflation for Solana. And this is the inflation rate or issuance rate. This is how it is with the current curve. So the issuance will go down gradually, down to a terminal issuance rate of 1.5%. And this is happening in 5.7 years here. So it will take a while still. Now we are at 3.5%. A little bit higher than that. And if this proposal is passing, the disinflation rate will be doubled from 15% to 30%. What this means is that the issuance goes down faster, and we reach this terminal rate of 1.5% in less than 3 years. So this is the change that has been proposed. The proposal is now in the discussion stage of the governance process of Solana. It acquired enough support from validators, but the vote has to be done yet. We didn't start voting yet. That's what I want to say. And in this governance process, it's not only the validators, because you as a staker, you can overrule or override the vote of your validator. And the last topic for today is another upcoming Solana upgrade. This is another governance proposal. And the idea here is to start charging resource fees. And Solana doesn't have this. Solana now has base fees and priority fees. Priority fees to get included faster. But the base fees that are there for basic spam prevention, they were fixed at this since forever, since the beginning, at 5,000 Lamport. That's the smallest unit of Sol per signature. That's it. That's all you had. And it doesn't matter what the transaction is doing or what costs the network is incurring, other than at the time of looking at the transaction, checking the signatures. Like, that's work that you need to do, and it is charged, right? That's why there is 5,000 Lamport per signature. It's a real work, and it's a spam prevention mechanism, because you cannot just spam and forcing people to check all these signatures, right? So there is this, but there is no finer accounting or allocation of finer control of costs. So now we have it, because this 5,000, with this proposal, we will have it if it passes, because this base fee, this fee is split in a true base inclusion fee. That's what was the only purpose of this. It's now 2,500 Lamports. And then there is a resource fee that is dynamic, and it actually depends on the resources that you have to be charged for if you are creating state or other. Actual resource fees are dynamic, and they're 100% burned. And then there are the priority fees, again, inclusion fees. If you need priority because there is congestion, you will increase the priority fees and try to convince the leader to get in. Reasons: negligible Sol burn today, and now the resource fee will be 100% burned, which is true. And first of all, the current base fee does not price resources. There was only the signature, and there are compute-heavy transactions that were not charged at all. There was no measuring of this. There was no metering whatsoever. It's just 5,000 per signature. So it's something that is supposed to be fixed. And yeah, that's all I have for this week. Thank you for staying with me. We'll keep posting these updates. It's always fun for me. So yeah, I think I'll keep going. All right. See you next week. Bye-bye.